welcome you to the District 23 regular board meeting on December 14th, 2022 at 7:01 p.m. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Bednar.
Present.
Mr. Kadanis.
Present.
Mrs. McLeany.
Here.
Mr. Nordmark. Mr. Novak.
Here.
Mrs. Peters. Mrs. Buklinski.
Here.
Tonight we're joined by our Sullivan ambassadors, or some representatives of that group, to lead us in the pledge, and then we're going to ask them some questions about a really cool assembly that they planned and led earlier this year. So if we could have our Sullivan ambassadors come right up on here into the front and create a nice line. And we're gonna, photo op is good this way. Flag is in the back. Students, whenever you're ready, you can lead us.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so if the ambassador students could turn around and face our board here, we wanted to ask you some questions.
You can take a step back.
So we could talk for hours and hours and hours about all the cool stuff the Sullivan ambassadors do. And we know that we're going to talk, we've talked already with the board about the collection that you did at the Family Festival, this Fall Fest, where you collected items, toiletry items. We know that you're going to be doing some dining nights out to raise some funds to send kids to summer camp. And we know that you're going to plan this May, you're going to plan kind of a fun run. Those two words don't usually go together for me, but you're going to make it a fun run is what I understand. But I asked you all to be here because I saw an assembly that you all put on. And I've been doing assemblies for a long, long time. And leading them, planning them, it's not easy. But you guys did it, and the students, your classmates, were fantastic. Can you tell the board a little bit about that assembly that you planned? Sure, tell us a little something.
Well, we planned it, very carefully, each step. So, really, for us, it was mostly about, how fun it was.
Okay.
And how important. Because, for us, we feel like all of the kids should feel like their school is entertaining.
Okay.
This school is a place where they want to be.
Yeah.
Every single day.
Okay.
We want to make them feel like they're comfortable here.
Cool.
And
Awesome.
we want to make this meeting so everybody could participate, because it wouldn't be fair if only us ambassadors participated.
Right.
Because we're just ordinary kids in the school. Everybody should have to come.
And can
everybody
be-
has to participate.
Right. Join in some of that. So I thought when you had the pie fight, that was a bit extreme. Didn't you throw pies at each other?
No.
Oh, what did you do during the assembly? I forgot. Sorry. Bella?
Wait, which Bella?
Oh, it's Bella and Bella.
Bella, Stella, and...
Bella, Stella.
We
Okay.
need to spread out.
So, just one person start and then the next person finish their sentence. I bet you could do that.
So we showed a video that was pretty funny,
Okay.
and we raised these signs with words. They're outside in the hallway, and we had everybody bring their words for the year. And after the video was over, we did a countdown. Then everybody waved their words in the air, and it was really fun.
Was it a video of a pie fight?
No,
No.
it was not.
It was about words.
Yeah, it was.
Does
It was
everybody,
like what to say more often, and it was hilarious.
does everybody have their own word?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Had their
Yeah.
own word, and then in the count of three, everybody put their.
What were some of the words?
Some of the words were so in the video they said they used like words in the sentence, so we tried to figure out what kind of act of kindness that was. So some of the words were like forgiving, mature, emotional. There were all different kinds of words describing what he used, what the person used, and everyone would line up, and then when their word was called, so like their number, they would hold their sign up, and then they were very brightly colored so everyone could see it, and then everyone else on the countdown at the beginning of the year, they made a word of something they wanted to be more of that year. So some people picked like organized,
You guys
friendly.
remember what your
and-
words were for the most part? Can we start here and just here? If you don't know, you say, I forgot.
Yeah.
What was your word?
My word is kind.
Kind.
Forgot.
Grateful.
Forgot.
Responsibility.
Sister.
Humorous.
Humor.
Thankful. Honest. Funny. Creative.
Extraordinary.
Optimistic. I forgot one.
All right.
There's some
So
great
those are some
words.
great words. And you guys just decided to do this one word thing all on your own, or
No.
you were inspired?
the teachers.
How were you inspired?
It was during bullying month,
Uh-huh.
and we were using words for people to use them more often.
To be-
because bullying wasn't really a good thing.
Right.
So we had the assembly to show people how words can really help other people.
Uh-huh. Sadie, what do you think?
And Miss Mazier came in to read us a story about your one word, and that's how like the assembly was encouraged and everyone had their own word.
Okay, so Miss Mezier read a book to all the classes about this one word idea, and then you guys picked up with it and said it'd be cool if we did this across the whole school. Any other questions?
How frequently did the ambassadors meet, and when do you meet?
Every like Wednesday, or like we would have it like 2 times a month.
Okay.
When do you guys meet?
On Wednesday,
Or like what time during the day? Like during
lunch and
English class?
recess.
Oh, during lunch recess.
Sometimes we'll have times where like 4th grade will come during their recess and 5th during their recess, so that it's 2 different times broken apart for the 2 groups.
And sometimes half of us don't come because it's only for like part of the group who is doing this particular thing.
And like we always wear ambassador shirts like to it because like we like to represent ourselves. It's kind of like a tradition. I really like it how we do that because it really shows who we are.
And how are you all enjoying 8th grade? Going well? What? No, you are much too mature and composed to be in 4th and 5th grade.
high school first.
I knew they weren't high school, but I thought they were here. Right, they came back. Maybe
Oddly, the word I made for the video was mature.
yeah, mature is a good word. Awesome.
So do you keep that word for next year, or do you pick something new?
Like we don't know. Most of the time we like change. Like one year we do something, the next year we do.
Oh, a
like,
different project?
Yeah, I was an ambassador also last year, and we did like totally different stuff.
Mm.
Yeah.
What are you gonna say?
I was gonna say that we should change it, but like if we just do like one thing the same like every year, like I would like to do something different next year.
Mm.
So like it won't start to be like it in like every student's mind who like, hey, we're doing this next year.
Yeah, they see it again and again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it starts to get kind of boring.
Yeah. Good.
Well, you're probably thinking of ideas for next year already
Right.
then.
And you guys want to give a shout out to any of the teachers who kind of help with all this? I don't know who they are. I can't. So many. What do you think?
Miss Yeager.
Miss Yeager, that's right. She's always so good with that.
Mrs. Spinos.
Mrs. Spinos. Uh-huh.
Mrs. Page.
Mrs. Page. Yeah.
Miss Mezier for reading the one word book, and all the other teachers that let the assembly happen in the
Right.
first place.
Awesome. Well, I knew when you saw this assembly, all of the kids at Sullivan were sitting there. The teachers were all off on the sides. These guys were all up in front, leading the whole assembly, speaking in front of hundreds of kids, getting everybody excited. That was real. That's not easy to do. So I knew that you guys would do a nice job of explaining that. So thank you all very much.
I would just say, like, maybe for most of us, that, like, I was scared at the beginning, like, I'm gonna mess something up, like, I'm gonna do something wrong. Like, and my heart was, like, pounding a lot. Like, once I, like, went up and, like, I saw all the kids, like, they weren't excited to see us, like, they were happy, but they were, like, so curious.
Yeah.
Like, it made me feel like I have to do this, like,
Yeah.
and we all thought that. It's like, the saying, all the minds share life. Like, we were all thinking the same thing, and we made like the best assembly.
And many of the teachers said the kids behaved even better for you all than they normally do when it's the adults talking. So that's something.
I think that's
Well, we want to thank you all for coming and sharing that story with us. We thank you for your leadership and the ways that you make Sullivan better every day just by your being your good selves. I hope that your one words continue to represent who you're trying to be. And if you haven't had a chance, as we're walking out down the main hallway here, back out to the exit, there's a big display of the one word on the right-hand side. We thank our sponsors, Mrs. Yeager and Mrs. Spinos and Mrs. Pate, and all the teachers who supported that assembly. Parents, we thank you all for coming on out tonight. We do have some certificates that we'll get to you students tomorrow. And we have a letter and a going away present for families should you be interested in putting a sign in your yard so that all your neighbors will be jealous and want to know why your parents are so proud of you. So we've got some of those. Miss Mezier has some of those for you on the way out. Mr. Alms, did you want to try to get a group photo as well?
Yes, I would like to get a group photo out there.
All right, awesome. Anything else from the board?
Thank you all for
Thanks
coming.
for coming.
Great
Yes.
job.
Thank you. Great job. The little foyer. Gavin was going to share some recognition of visitors and visitor participation. Which is next.
Right. We can continue at each regular and special open meeting. Members of the public and district employees may comment on or ask questions of the Board of Education. If you would like to address the board, please complete the form. The form is right there. And give it to Mrs. O'Donnell, our recording secretary. Would anyone like to address the board? Okay, so moving on.
So a couple of communication items till Ms. Mezier is able to jump back in and lead the Sullivan School Improvement presentation. The legislative dinner through EdRed is going to be scheduled for January 23rd at the Hilton in Northbrook. Kathy Najedian is a PR specialist. She'll be there talking about building your brand, sharing stories to gain support for schools. If you're interested in participating in this event in January, please let me or Michelle know and we will sign you up. There is also the save the date for the spring North Cook Division meeting. That'll be on March 15th, and it'll be right next door in District 21. They'll be dedicating their new community resource and administration building shortly. We received an invite to attend that dedication ceremony on Saturday if anyone is interested. And they're going to be presenting a bit on that school community partnership that sort of drove some of the rationale behind building the facility the way they did. It's really a kind of a dynamic project. Dr. Sroka can share some really exciting news as well about a couple of our MacArthur students.
Yeah, so we had Will and Henry Bott, they're brothers and they're students at MacArthur. They are part of the Special Olympics Illinois Unified Champion Schools Youth Activation Committee. And so last week, they presented to over 300 middle schoolers through Zoom with their other committee members across the state. And so they led some activities, and all the topics were around inclusion, making your schools more inclusive, and how to participate in unified sports. So they did some stuff on unified fitness. That was one of their topics. So it was great. They did amazing. At one point, the boys were introducing themselves, and they were kind of talking about things that they like to do and whatever. And one of them turned around and, I like participating with my brother, and they high-fived, and so I got to see that across the state of Illinois, so it was pretty cool.
It's on Twitter.
So.
It's actually really sweet to watch. Like,
Yeah.
it made the Twitter thing, it's really cool to watch the boys.
So they did an amazing job, so we're super proud of them.
Awesome. That was exciting. And we hosted a viewing party for the rest of the Unified kids at MacArthur, where they participated in the activities that were being led in Bloomington.
Yeah, we were down in Bloomington with the committee.
And then it was live streamed to all the different schools around the state. So we had our classroom and classrooms
Yeah, our
participate.
unified kids.
Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. Awesome, thank you. Little good news from the MacArthur students again as well.
Yeah, great.
All right, we have our team from Ann Sullivan here to share their State of the School presentation. Thank you for attending tonight and sharing the good news of all the awesome stuff that's happening here at Sullivan.
Where do you want us to stand?
You're okay there.
Stand 2 feet in front of us, right around.
Right.
Yeah, actually, if you want to stand this way, then the viewers at home will be able to. I know you love the concept.
And just put your hand up.
Yeah. Gonna have to at some point.
Hi, I'm Tracy Mazier, the principal of Ann Sullivan School, and thank you for welcoming us here to share our State of the School presentation. We're really excited, and I'm going to let my team introduce themselves.
I'm Linda Hartman, representing 4th grade.
I'm Lori Travis, representing 5th grade. And I'm Amy Rickham, I'm the school psychologist at Ann Sullivan.
And Kelsey Baith, Christine Gannick, and Tara McTavish are also part of our school improvement team, and they were integral in helping plan and create this presentation, but they couldn't be here tonight, so we wanted to acknowledge their contribution. Okay, next slide. All right, so we're really excited about this year's presentation. It was created collaboratively with all of our staff at a staff meeting. We brainstormed the ways in which we've been addressing each of the strategic goal areas with our students, so it was really a collaborative presentation. We're also really excited because it contains one of our most important voices, the voice of our students, so you'll get to hear them talking a little bit. Everything that we do in our school should be tied to the mission and vision, and all of our school goals, our principal goals, our teacher goals should relate to our strategic goal areas. So we are really happy this year with what we've done so far to inspire our students and help them grow. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Hartman.
So the cornerstone of our student success is implementing a strong core curriculum. Our iReady Math and New Wonders ELA curriculum are key factors in ensuring our students grow academically. In addition, incentives that encourage independent reading, such as our 20 and 40 book challenges, are an important part of the culture of learning at Sullivan. Some of our students share their thoughts about our core curriculum and supporting activities.
Hi, I'm Mateo in 5th grade from the Slobodas class.
Hi, I'm Isla from Miss Hartman's class. Hi, I'm Todd from Miss Hartman's class.
And today I'm going to be telling you about our Ready Math program that helps us in math. It helps us understand multiple operations of how to solve problems. It teaches us geometry and equations of area and volume. It shows us multiple strategies to solve the problems that we don't understand.
Multiple ways to solve multiplication problems are boxes, partial products, and traditional. iReady is an individual path that helps you through your path, like fractions, comparing fractions, and division. You need to finish your 45 minutes each week
to understand more math and help your brain grow.
Hi, I'm Bella from Miss Love's class, and I'm here today to talk to you about our new Wonders program. Our Wonders program provides us with weekly stories. There are different games about grammar and sentences and vocabulary for us to work with. The different stories that the Wonders program provides help us learn about things that can happen in real life or in different kinds of genres. My personal favorite genres are dramas and poetry. I'm Liliana, and I'm from Miss Hartman's class.
Hi, I'm Zoe, and I'm from Miss Hartman's class. In our current Wonders unit, we're learning about poems. We have some poems to share with you. Teamwork. Squash was what my last sound was. Ouch is my response. Another sibling picks me up, and I hope it won't take long. I was on my way home, and I had a heavy leave. And then an unkind person had to squash me. My siblings brought me home. I thought I'd RIP, but then I ate much more food, and now I am free. More siblings kept me safe, and soon again I was again mean. Soon we went together out into the world, and I am no longer curled. Teamwork.
Hello, I made a poem in shape of this curly snail, and I will read it to you. I was walking through a trail when I crossed past a snail. It was also very pale, so I brought it a toy whale.
Hello, my name is Emily, and I'm from 5th grade in Mrs. Schloman's class, and I'm going to talk about the 40 book challenge, where you read books from various genres, and some of my favorite were science fiction and mystery. Along the way, students earn prizes from a treasure chest, or their name gets announced on the announcement. This has encouraged us to read more than ever.
Hi, I'm Bella from Miss Kaspari's class, and I'll talk about the 20 book bingo for 4th grade. Some examples are food in the title, a place in the title, a person's name in the title, science fiction, a graphic novel or comic book, and this has challenged us to enjoy reading a variety of books, and I'm already at 16 books, so I'm really close. Bye!
In addition to our Second Step SEL program, teachers focus on building community and social emotional learning in the classroom. As part of our successful program, we have Sullivan Expectations. This year, we introduced Panther Pause, which recognize positive behaviors throughout the school day. We know that participation in extracurricular activities gives students a connection to school outside of the classroom and academics, in addition to being a predictor of future success in school. This year, we had record participation in many of our fall clubs. We had 73 participate in chorus, 72 in game club, 58 students tried out for our musical, and 36 for news crew.
This year at Sullivan School, we have Panther Paw tickets. To get a Panther Paw ticket, you have to demonstrate being safe, respectful, and responsible. And if
get chosen by the end of the week, you get to choose a prize. This year I picked having lunch with a staff member, which was Miss Slowick, and a friend. I also chose lunch with a staff member and a friend. I chose Mrs. Travis. And I picked 10 minutes of recess time for my whole class. We love having pause at Sullivan School. Hi, we are Sullivan Ambassadors. We are a service club, and our goal is to help improve our community and help those in need. In order to become ambassadors, we all had to complete a video application. We submitted a video telling about ourselves and the reasons we thought we would make good ambassadors. Our group meets on Wednesdays during lunch and recess. We meet to plan and organize activities for the whole school.
One of our big projects this year was planning and running an all-school assembly. This was a lot of work, but very fun. After Ms. Messier came around to each classroom and read a book called One Word, students had to think about what one word describes them and who they want to be for the school year. Students brought their words to the assembly, and after watching a Kid President video about having good character and ways everyone can be better, everyone held up their word signs. It was so cool. Take a look.
Dare to be, sure you live up to these words. Be bold, be brave, and have an amazing year.
That assembly was so fun. This year we also organized a craft table for the Fall Fest, where students could do leaf rubbing decorations for Aspire Living and Prophet Titus. We often make decorations to send to them to help put a smile on their faces. We hope to be able to visit them in spring. We also helped plan Veterans Day this year and got to welcome and introduce our veterans. Lastly, we're looking forward to our next project, which is planning for our spring fundraiser. Our goal is to increase awareness of the environment while raising money for our district camp scholarship fund.
Hello, my name is Mateo, and I'm a member of our Sullivan chorus. This year we have 73 singers in our group. Let's ask a few of them some questions about our chorus. Clara, what do you like about being in Sullivan chorus?
I like singing and sitting next to new people.
Bella, you just had a performance at the Chicago Wolves game. What was your favorite part of that?
My favorite part about the Wolves game was being able to sing and having everyone watching you and being able to go with all the people invited.
Now, Jules, what events does the chorus have coming up?
The chorus has the winter show coming up. It is on Monday, December 19th at 7 p.m.
Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you at our winter concert.
Bye. Bye.
We have our kids work collaboratively whenever possible so they have the opportunity to share their thinking, foster their discussion skills, and build a shared understanding of the essential concepts and skills they're learning throughout the curriculum. This slideshow shows examples of our kids working together to construct knowledge in math and literacy.
Okay, I'm going to talk about our coaching here. So staff at Sullivan have shown up in great numbers for professional learning opportunities provided by the school and district coaching team. Staff are participating in PLC, which are professional learning communities, mystery pop-up PDs, and attending and presenting Passport to Learning sessions. The staff is eager to learn and grow together to better serve our students. The PD areas of focus this year have been student engagement, student discussion, and integration of technology. Creating a welcoming environment for staff, and especially new staff, has been an area of great focus this year as well. School leaders have utilized meeting strategies learned from adaptive schools training. Staff members feel safe and valued in each meeting. Staff discussions and our decision-making processes have never been better. We continue to build a positive culture by providing opportunities for recognition and giving back. The district coaching team and the school's Sunshine Committee have provided staff with opportunities such as staff shout-outs, morning treats and coffee, and starting this Friday, Fill a Cup Challenge.
All right, we've worked really hard this year to build relationships both within our school community, the local community, and the broader community. So we were excited to host our first parent coffee this fall, focused on our new ELA curriculum, and we have our second one planned for January, so we're looking forward to that. We've been really excited to welcome our PTO volunteers back into the classroom for AVIC and for winter parties, and as well as welcoming in parent speakers and parent guest readers in the classroom. So it's been really great to have parents back in there. Locally, we continue to partner with the Prospect Heights Public Library, where classes take walking field trips there. We've had librarians come and do presentations for our kids, and a favorite of the kids, which is pictured here, are the monthly book bags that get dropped off, and they're always excited to see what new arrivals they have from there. This year, as our ambassadors talked about, they planned and organized our Veterans Day presentations, and we were really excited to welcome speakers from our local VFW and American Legion posts, as well as some reserve and active service members. The kids did a great job greeting our veterans, introducing them to their classmates, and really facilitating the process. So it was a great way for our school community to honor Veterans Day and honor our veterans, and it's a staff and student favorite of the year. And here is our chorus, all 73 of them at the Chicago Wolves game. So I think this was our third performance at the Wolves game. They were wonderful, wonderful representatives of Sullivan and District 23. They did a great job, and we were so excited. We had like 324 people there from the district, between the kids and families and friends. So it was a great evening and just a way to build community.
So I'm going to talk about ECDEC, which Sullivan has had the opportunity to house in our school this year. So ECDEC is Early Childhood Developmental Enrichment Center, and my 5th grade class, along with their classroom, paired up this year, and we are reading buddies with them. So they come into our classroom every Friday, and we read together, and have just really built a great relationship with them. In addition to reading with them, we've done other fun things like work in the innovation lab. We help them, put on their Halloween costumes and walk them in the Halloween parade. We had a little afternoon where the 5th graders got to have preschool afternoon in their room and play with all the preschool things. And just build great relationships with them. With our intentional pairings, we've also been able to pair up kids of similar, if not the same exact languages, to help each other with that. And so it's just a great opportunity for the preschoolers to hear that fluent reading of an older kid and that modeling, and for the older kids to build their confidence, practice their fluency, and authentic reading. And it's just something that we look forward to every time that we get to be with them. So we're really fortunate this year. The next slide, if you mind, thank you. Just some words that they wanted to share, our buddies.
I'm Jules. This is Riley, and I'm Anna. Miles. And my name is Zach. We're from Miss Travis's class, and we're 5th graders. This year we get to read with the early childhood.
Annalena, why do you like being buddies?
Because I always get books and read with my Jules. I love reading with the early childhood because I get to build relationships with all of the cute little kids. I like to read with my buddy because I like to see the expressions on their faces and their cute little faces.
I
like to read with them because when they get excited, when you come, I give them a hug.
You give them a
All
hug?
of them.
All of them.
I love seeing their expressions right when they walk into the classroom.
Thank you.
Hi, we also want to highlight the many innovative ways that we have updated and used our learning space this year to encourage collaboration and learning. And one big way that we have utilized that this year is our new outdoor learning space, as it has been being developed and furnished and built. Starting from the beginning of the year, you see there with instrument tryouts, big group there, as well as some science experiments going on out in the sun. We look forward to seeing how else we can use that as the seasons change. And we've also been able to use that to interact with some feathered friends. You see there Mrs. Schloman's class learning about raising chickens and also getting to interact with the chicken. Thank you to a parent, speaker, and volunteer. We've also updated our inside learning spaces, including our renovated conference room that welcomes parents and teens for collaboration, as well as small groups of students there for learning. And we are continuing.
My daughter is in Shlomo's class, and the chicken visit was absolutely one of the highlights of the year.
There's a whole page in the yearbook.
Yeah, I know. Just about the chicken visit. Yeah. I'm sorry for interrupting you.
Unforgettable, that's for sure. That's awesome. And we've also moved on to some new phases of updating our furniture in other areas of the building, including completing phase 2 of our office update with new furniture in our principal's office, and we are in the process of phase 2 in our library as well, adding additional seating space for learning and for meetings.
Alright, so we're gonna leave you with this image, and this, if you're there, this is a great memory of the school year, but when I was going through all the pictures, I just think this really speaks to the progress we've made as a school and a district, and you see overlap throughout the presentation. These goal areas don't stand alone. They're all kind of connected. And Fall Fest and this right here, the student success, the chorus and all of the instrumental, vocal and instrumental groups performing in our outdoor space, family and community partnerships, the community organizations that came with the PTO, the staff participation. So I just really think this image speaks to the progress we've made and why we're proud to be D23. Thank you for having us.
Comments or questions?
You can't leave yet. That was excellent.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just excellent. I loved how you included the kids, the examples. I mean, I won't say this, turn off the camera to the other principals, but I loved how you included the kids. I love the fact that they're taking leadership roles and doing things, and you're giving them challenges, and that's great. And you know, we're here because of the kids, and you brought the kids to us in this presentation, and it was great.
Yeah.
Tons of engagement.
Yeah, yeah, and you could see that with all the kids that were saying that here. It's awesome.
And it's cool to see, right? Like, obviously, we're living Sullivan every day, but it's cool to see on the flip side, like, that the kids can explain what they're doing and why they're doing it, like why they're learning and how excited they are about learning, and it's just really cool to see that from the other side too.
And like it was a Daniel
Mm-hmm. Daniel
said that, you know, they look forward to coming every day, you know. I mean,
And that is kudos to the amazing staff here, to the staff standing up here and all of our staff who make that possible, because they are the ones that the kids love to see every day, and they make that happen.
Well, they obviously love to be with each other, and,
Yeah.
and I think it's awesome.
So my boys are 18 and 27. Both went through Sullivan, and just so different. I mean, it was an amazing district back then, but just the level of engagement and the level of just different activities they're doing nowadays. Man.
And the confidence and the
It's
leadership
incredible.
that kids show at that age is just, it's just awesome.
Yeah, you're just building it right now.
Right,
Which is
right.
great, because they need it.
It's good stuff.
Right, yeah.
Lori, your class with the integration with ECDEC, right? Because they're near you this year is great. But I hear about this all the time from a jealousy perspective, which is why don't I get to go hang out with the ECDEC kids and only Mrs. Travis' class gets to do it? But it's great, you know.
That's so funny that they even know that. I mean,
Yeah, no, I mean, but this, I think that this kind of, I mean, it's great. Like the entire school kind of knows about that partnership.
I didn't know
and
that.
That's really great.
They
You know,
love it.
the other thing that I
Doesn't
think.
sound like that in my house.
Oh, it doesn't. No.
That's what she lives for.
Yeah, no, that's true. You know, I guess, you know, I think the big curriculum change this year is the ELA. I guess could you just give some high-level feedback about kind of your experience so far with the new ELA curriculum?
So I think that we're very excited, and we continue to be I think one of the really positive things is all of the different elements that as a teacher I can go ahead or we can go ahead and tap into and really tailor the curriculum to the class. Our administration has been very supportive about allowing us to not only find our way, but to continue to make changes in the best interests of the children. It's wonderful to have something in front of us to hold on to, but we've also been continually encouraged to do things like novel studies and special projects and collaborations and so forth. I think the program will stand for itself for years to come. We chose something that was really top of the line, and the kids are excited about the things that they're doing in class, and we're excited to watch them continue to grow and learn. So we're learning along with them, which is really exciting, but we're also able to not only collaborate within our teams, but across teams to continue to help and support each other.
I was going to say the same thing. We've had a lot of time to talk with each other through this, as any new change like this is a huge change. And the other huge part of helping us with that is our coaching, that we can go and get some help through along the ways of what we're trying to do and how to navigate the new curriculum, which has been really, really helpful.
I think it's really brought us together quite a bit because we're going through this together, we're experiencing it together, and we're doing it for the kids. And it's been challenging, but in a really positive way. And it'll be exciting to see, what's next in January. So,
congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
See you guys later.
Chris, I just want to double check that we're okay with the microphone. I know anytime we're in these larger spaces, are we okay on sound? Good? Okay, thank you.
I can hear you.
Oh, I know.
That is what's important.
We'll invite our partners up for this next portion of the presentation. As the board is aware, we've got our Building a Better D23 survey results that we'll be sharing tonight, the recommendations that came forth from the Citizens Task Force. And we thank again our colleagues for their support throughout this process, really over the last year and a half. And we've got a presentation that we're going to kind of walk through a lot of good data that was shared in the packet as well. But we'll put some context to that again with the assistance from our colleagues here. Everybody ready? You're good? Okay.
Let's do this. Good evening, Jeff Huck with Archon, for those who don't remember me. Let me just give you a quick overview of the agenda that we're going to go through tonight. First couple elements there will be pretty quick. It's a review, just to refresh your memory of the process, where we are in that. We're going to refresh your memory on what was tested from a solution standpoint. We're going to talk a little bit about what we shared with the Citizens Task Force, which was just held last week. Paul's going to go through the survey data results, which that'll be a big chunk of what we do tonight. Liz is going to talk about the updated financing information and a revised referendum question. Marcia's going to talk about what came out of that meeting, that Citizens Task Force number 3 and the recommendations that they would like to make or have made to your superintendent, and you'll pass on. Then we'll have a bit of a question and answer session. We're all here to answer any questions you might have. And then we'll talk a little bit about next steps, and hopefully you'll have a nice, good board discussion at that point.
So this is just a quick reminder, Marcia Sutter, for those who don't remember, for Minding Your Business, of the process that we have gone through over the last year. I'm not going to read all of it to you, but if you recall, we started with a needs assessment. What did the district need? What steps do we need to take this out to the community? And then we moved into community outreach, ongoing communication, task force meetings, tours of the school. Your administrative team did an amazing number of presentations that you'll hear a little bit about later. Earned media, which is just what newspaper coverage did we get? we built a whole new website for this project. And after the final task force meeting that was held earlier this month, where we did the mail survey, and then we had the final task force meeting to share those results with the task force. Paul will share those, and then we're going to move into the part where you'll have to do some of the heavy lifting and make a decision about whether or not the time is right to put this on the ballot.
So just a quick recap on what was tested with the community. We did some visuals, the diagram that you see on the right, but also there were some questions that were asked that basically broke that down into some options that you might have. Essentially, we were talking about 8 classroom addition at Eisenhower, including what you see in the small yellow spaces, a number of offices to relieve some of the stress that you've got on some of your social workers, your speech pathologist, your OT folks within the building itself. A multi-purpose space to take some of the pressure off your existing multi-purpose space, but also to provide some support services for the addition as well. A renovation of that library once those small spaces where all those specialists are sitting are removed from the library. Now you've got an opportunity to make that library really work for you, which it currently doesn't do such a great job of. Moving the administration from its current location to that area that's in yellow, which would do a number of things for you, including provide a secure vestibule at a new entry, a reconfiguration of the parking lot with an improved drop-off loop, security cameras and enhancements district-wide, so at all the buildings would get something, and then replacement of doors and windows and siding at the main campus where we are today.
So the financing solution is $24 million to complete the Eisenhower expansion and renovation and the facility master planning projects. $20 million of that would come from debt certificates, which require a new source of revenue and a taxpayer approval to access. And then $4 million of those DSEB bonds, which were part of your regular capital plan, and those were issued earlier this year, so you already have the funds there. So the other part is funding the annual operations. So expanding full-day kindergarten and early childhood results in additional expenditures for not only staff, but curricular materials, utilities, and maintenance. So if the plan is approved and implemented, there will be 143 additional students served, pre-K, full-day kindergarten, and first grade, and a requirement for 18.3 more staff members, and that's costing, with the curriculum materials, utilities, and the maintenance and consumables, $1.2 million in the annual budget. So what we're looking at is a limited tax rate increase, and those dollars will fund $20 million of debt certificates repaid over 20 years. So that's going to be about $1,667,000 per year based on current estimates, and $1.2 million annually for the operating portion. And the amount that we tested, running this back in July, was an estimated tax impact of $44.65 per thousand of taxes paid, or approximately $485.78 for a $350,000 home. So it's one referendum question. It's called a limiting rate, tax rate increase, and it will serve those two purposes.
Joe Papanikolaou, Nicholas and Associates. Just a quick update on the timeline. Pending a successful referendum in the spring, design would commence at that point. So we'll spend the balance of 23 going through budgeting along with the design process. That will lead to a final control estimate in the early part of 24. with the idea of going out to bid and then breaking ground in the spring of '24 with substantial completion in August of '25.
So what are the things that we shared with the third Citizens Task Force? We provided an update on the community information process, and that included the items that they had shared with us in their previous two meetings, 1 and 2. Feedback we had gotten from them contributed to enhancing that Building a Better D23 website. Really populated that. An informational letter went out. There were 5 community information events that we shared some of the feedback we got from those, that was obtained from those. Another newsletter for Building a Better 23, and then the public opinion survey. Paul went through all the results of that. He reviewed all that data, that we had a question and answer session with them, a big discussion, which was really, really helpful. And then they made recommendations to the superintendent, which we'll go through.
How well attended was that?
Well, we had,
There were about 16 people
Yeah,
there.
16, 1 online.
16 attendees?
Yes.
From the public?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's about typical what we would see at a Citizens Task Force meeting,
Yeah,
in that 15 to 20 range.
So Paul, Christian has got your clicker, so just give him the.
All right, I'll have you go back to the first slide. So, good evening. Finally get to meet you in person. Paul Hanley, Managing Director of Beyond Your Base. I'm excited to share with you the results of the mail survey. Next slide. So this is my disclaimer. Basically what it's saying is that this is a mail survey and not a phone poll. So you don't have enough voters to do a phone poll. And if we did have enough voters to do a phone poll, we would do what's called a random stratified sample. So we would try to exactly match the demographics of those who are going to show up to vote for an April 2023 election. But with the mail survey, you send it out to every registered voter household, and you're at the mercy of who sends it back. So we can't control the demographics. However, as we will look at the demographics, you'll see that some are pretty close to what you would see for an April election. Some are a little bit off, which is pretty common for a mail survey. Just know that it provides a good undertone of the electorate. And we can slice and dice the data, which we have done, to give you a sense of how do parents think about it? How do non-parents think about the proposal? What do seniors think, et cetera? And I'm going to share that with you tonight. Next slide. So we mailed to 6,665 registered voter households. We had 17 questions. We usually get 8 to 17% response rate. This was mailed right after the November election, so there's a lot of dust still settling. We had 487 reply prior to running the crosstabs. So at some point we have to kind of say stop. We have to do the analysis. I've got to make this presentation. But since then we've had about 56 more surveys come in. So we're up to about 8% response rate. As far as the results changing, the needle didn't move much when I added the other 50 some odd surveys. We'll continue to get surveys for the next couple of months. It just will trickle in. And we'll keep adding those to the database, and I'll share those results with you as we get more details. 64% of those who responded had somebody in the home who was a likely voter for April. I know that because on the envelope there's a little dot for those who had a likely voter in the household. Those that didn't get the dot didn't have a likely voter in the household. And again, I mentioned that this was not a phone survey, and so it's not scientific. Next slide. So this slide I added, and I think it's super important. So I do a lot of work in various states. One is Colorado. And in Colorado, when I do a mail survey, the surveys always come back and they err on the side of 2 positive. So, right, let's say it's 70% support, and everybody starts high-fiving each other, and they're like, well, wait a minute. Don't get it too excited yet, because typically in Colorado, they're too favorable, right, too friendly. In Illinois, it's the opposite. Okay, so the mail survey and they're too negative. Okay, and the only time it wasn't too negative was New Trier High School District, and it was at 65% support. And then on the scientific phone poll, it was 65%, and the final result was 65%. So I kind of patted myself on the back, said, oh, it's amazing. But this is the reality. So typically, the mail survey is more negative than the final result. So we had 6 measures that we worked on this past election cycle. All 6 passed for $574 million in capital improvement needs. And here are some of them. So, some of these are older. So, for example, with Winnetka, the mail survey said 62% support, and the actual result was 64%. Palatine, 57, the actual was 63. We kind of go down the list. And then that last one, I presented to the task force, and Jeff stopped me and said, wait a minute, that's 70%. For Northbrook Glenview was actually 75%. So I didn't believe him, so I just looked it up. And it was 75.5%. It's almost 76% support. And you look at it and go, how did that happen? How could you have a mail survey that was 48% support, and then you get this end result at 75%? So 27 percentage points higher, and it happens because 1, it was an April election, so it's one of these lower turnout elections, and 2, they got all these parents to vote. So you have a bunch of parents that typically don't vote. Parents of school-age children, I should say, not parents. And they aggressively went out and got them to vote, and they showed up in masses. In fact, we knew, based on the data, we could track who had voted because you can get that information. We knew before spring break that it had already passed. And it was because they did such a phenomenal job on the campaign. Next slide. So these mail surveys are typically dominated by female respondents, which happened again. So 52% female, 28% male, 15% of, more than one person completed the survey. They checked that box. And so, again, this is really common. The only time it doesn't happen is with fire districts. It'll be the opposite. It'd be 52% male, 28% female kind of thing. For whatever reason, I don't know, but this always happens. Next slide. So we asked them, what's your age? And as you go down this, likely voters, April 23. So we have great voter data, and we can kind of project who typically would show up for an April election. We think this is the breakdown of what that age groups would look like. On the right-hand side are those who responded to the survey. So we had nobody 18 to 24 participating in the survey, even though 20% of those responding participated online. And I was kind of excited because that's about as high as it's ever been that we've done the online option. So I thought for sure we'd get a few 18 to 24-year-olds, but we didn't. 25 to 34, so I have that in green because it's higher than our projected April data. And so anything in green is higher than, so look at 35 to 44. We think that in a typical April election, it'll be 7% turnout of that group, where on the survey it was 22%. 45 to 54, 11%, and so the seniors are underrepresented in this survey. Okay, next slide. Any district employees, 94% no, 4% yes. Next slide. Do you have a school-age child? 63% said no. I think in an April election, if we didn't promote it and it was just your typical April election, it's probably about 75% no child, no school-age child. If it's a presidential, it's about 70%. So here we have too few people represented who don't have a child in school. It should be higher. Next slide. 97% own their home, pretty common. Next slide. 58% abandoned the community 16 years or longer. Again, pretty common with these surveys. Next slide. Level of awareness. So we want this to be around 70% in terms of a lot or some. So we asked them how much people read or seen or heard. We get to 66% have heard a lot or some, which is pretty good. Next slide. How satisfied are you with the amount of info that you received? 68%, very or somewhat satisfied, which is, again, a decent number. We're shooting for 70%. Next slide. Super important, grade the district. Why is that important? Because an A or B vote has a strong positive correlation to a yes vote. A CDF is a no vote. We see it every time we do mail surveys, scientific phone polls, hybrid polls, etc. This is super important. If you had a really, these are decent grades. In A or B, 53%. CDF, 18%. You know, are there a few Illinois districts I've worked with where it was higher? Yes, but these are actually pretty good grades. Now on the next slide, we're asked them grade the facilities, and we're hoping that they're not super positive, because if they think the facilities are great, then they're not going to vote for a tax measure. Next slide. And so we do see that CDF increases by 10 percentage points. AB goes down to 36%. So again, you know, it's not like everybody's saying, oh my gosh, these buildings are falling apart, but they do, many of them see that they need work. But so now we test parts of the package. And we ask a question on a Likert scale, 1 being low priority, 5 being high priority. What priority would you place on these various items that might be in the package? I have ordered these in highest priority to lowest priority. I added the 4 and 5 together for that right column, so that's that on the top right it says 63%. So I've added 4 and 5 together, and that's how I sorted them. So number 1, adding security cameras. Number 2, replacing outdated siding, windows, doors at all the buildings, 59%. Third, constructing a new secure entry vestibule at Eisenhower, 56%. Hiring additional teachers to expand full-day kindergarten and early childhood education, 48%. Next slide. Adding classrooms for full-day kindergarten, early childhood education at Eisenhower, 48%. Creating space for school psychologists and other specialists, 46%. Improving pedestrian vehicular safety by creating a new bus loop, parking lot, and adding parking lot at Eisenhower, 40%. And then lastly, the multi-purpose room at 40%. So I always, in addition to that kind of adding the 4 and 5 together, I look at 5 versus 1, right? So the only one where we see 1 higher than 5 would be that multi-purpose room. 21% low priority, 16% high priority. In terms of like intensity, I don't look at it that way when I look at parts of the package. I just look at how are things sorted relative to each other. So I can't say like, oh my gosh, yeah, you know, parking lots improvements were, you know, not accepted at all, etc. I can't make a determination. I can just show the order. But when it comes to these messages, we feel confident that, let's go to the next slide. We test, so what we're doing here is testing arguments for and arguments against. We're trying to recreate what you might hear during a campaign. So you go to McDonald's, go into a coffee shop, whatever, you're talking about this measure, here are some of the things you might hear, and how did they test. And again, we ordered these, this time, 1 was not at all convincing, 5 was very convincing, so you're gonna see these ordered by the highest percentage 5s. So number 1 message, keeping students and staff safe is critical, 38%. So I have a pollster in DC who I work with, and when he talks about messaging in terms of intensity, he uses baseball terms. So the 20% would be a single, 30% is a double, 40% is a triple, 50% is a home run. I usually get a few home runs. Here we don't have any home runs. That first one though, we're getting a double. Second one's a double as well. Full-day kindergarten, early childhood education, increase the likelihood of success. Another double, if we want to continue to attract young families and stay competitive with neighboring districts, it's important for D23 to offer full-day kindergarten. Now we move to kind of the singles. Proposed facility and site improvements will not only strengthen safety and security, it will also extend the life of the district's 4 school buildings, reduce costly emergency repairs, improve energy efficiency. Surprised that one wasn't higher, because here you're hitting on all cylinders, right? You're like giving them all this stuff, and they're like, okay, I guess, right? 25%. Next. School psychologists, speech pathologists, other student sports specialists should not have to work on makeshift offices, 25%. And then lastly, cost of the services and repairs, with cost of the services and repairs increasing, D23 has had to defer certain maintenance projects, and it's been 35 years since voters approved funding. Again, it's usually a little bit stronger, but that was the bottom message at 21%. Now, we go to the arguments against. And you'll see that the arguments against, next slide, actually were stronger than the arguments in favor. So number one, any increase in taxes would be a hardship, 44%, so we're at a triple for that message. Very common for that message to be strong, but that's like stronger than I normally see. That's usually like in the 30s, high 30s. Given the rising cost of living, this is not a good time to pursue a tax increase. We're at a double. The district's trying to do too much at once. Almost a double, but now we're at a single. District 23 needs to live within its means. A single. Next slide. D23 already offers full-day kindergarten, early childhood education programming. Adding more classrooms and staff to serve all eligible students in the district should not be a high priority. Now we're starting to drop to almost below a single. We're at 22%. And lastly, this proposal should be focused solely on expanding full-day kindergarten and early childhood education, 12%. Very convincing. So you're not buying that at all. Now that not at all convincing is at a 31%, which is why early on in this whole process I said I need to think about pursuing just full-day kindergarten and early childhood education because it can be a challenge. Just because there's so many folks that it doesn't resonate with them in terms of how they see it as a benefit to their family or as a taxpayer. Next slide. So then we asked a question about tax sensitivity. And it's, I'm going to read it. So the estimated annual tax would be 47. Of the rate increase of 47 cents is 486 for a home with fair market value of $350,000. How concerned are you about the impact of this possible tax increase? So we get 40% extremely concerned, 16% very concerned. So totaling 56% versus 43% some are not very concerned. So when I presented to the task force, I said we're shooting for about 35% for that extremely and very concerned. And then I thought, I gotta look back at that because that's across all types of public entities across multiple states over 30 years, right? And so I wanted to look back and figure out what was the tax sensitivity looking like for all these districts that I just did, or that I presented early on to you. And it was at, the average is 47%. Okay, so you're a little bit above the average. It surely is not 35%, that tax sensitivity number. But again, it's still a bit above that average. And again, all those you saw on the screen had passed. Next slide. So we get to the ballot question. 48% yes, 49% no. It's kind of split. However, the intensity favors the definitely no. So definitely no, 33%, definitely yes, 25%. And again, I wanted to go back and look at all these other examples and figure out, when has this happened before? Like, have we had any projects in which the definitely yes was at kind of at that level versus the definitely no? And so the two that stood out were Maine High School District and Glenview 34. In the case of Glenview 34, it was 25% definitely yes, so same thing. And then Maine High School District was 18% definitely yes, ended up passing. And they don't say it to try to like promote you to say, oh, you gotta go for it. I'm just giving you the reality that sometimes you'll get this intensity not in favor of the measure, but it still passes. Next slide. So then, as I mentioned, we ran crosstabs. So we're trying to figure out, okay, so, do males support it? Do females support it? Well, males aren't that supportive. They're at 38%. Females, 59%. It's really common to see that, but it's not common to have the males at 38%. That's usually like 48%, not 38%. Next slide. So, and then some of them checked the box that said more than one person completed the survey. In this case, it's typically a couple working together. When couples work together, they typically err on the side of being more conservative with their monies. We see it every single time we do a survey, and that's what happened. 36% yes, 65% no. When that female gets into the voting booth, will she vote no? Not necessarily. That's another thing that's happening here, right? It's this dynamic of a couple working together. So if a couple works with a financial advisor, the same thing happens, right? They're erring on the side of being more conservative with their monies. Next slide. Support level across age groups, again, pretty common, where this 18 to 54 is supportive. We get to 55, 64, doesn't matter whatever the public project is that we're trying to do, they're always a no vote. 65 to 74, we get a little bit of a bump. 75 plus, same kind of thing. Sometimes that's the grandparent effect, where they have grandchildren in the district. Don't know if that's the case here, but it's pretty common to see a little bit of a bump there. But again, that 56 to 64-year-old group is always not supportive of a tax measure. Next slide. As I mentioned, likely versus unlikely voter based on the little dot on the envelope. We're at 46% for the likely voter, 48% for the unlikely voter. Pretty common given that unlikely voters are typically younger voters. Next slide. So this is super important. If this was not the case, then you could wrap this up and just go home. Do parents support this? With the parents that have school-age children? Yes, 71%. Do those who don't have a school-age child in the home support it? Not really, 35%. That's usually higher. Good news is you got 71% of parents. Sometimes that's not always the case. Sometimes it's below that 70% mark. In fact, it's sometimes much lower. And when you get to that point, then it starts to get really awkward. That this is just not going to pass, even if you had good get out the vote efforts. I won't mention the district, but we did a poll. Who did a mail survey this election cycle, this previous one. We got the results back. Even those with school-age children were saying no. They were basically like, this isn't going to pass. Do not put this on the ballot. And they didn't. And they mentioned that to their taxpayers. So, hey, we listened, but nobody supports it, so we're not putting it on the ballot. Next slide. So here we see that parents with the youngest children support it the most, which makes sense, right? So your kid's going to benefit all through all these grades. Of course you're going to support it. And then we see it go all the way down. Then we get to that parent with the high school kid, and they're like, well, these are elementary, middle school. This is, my kids are in high school. So now we see that dropping, and then obviously the no school-age child drops below the line. Not obviously, but that's the case. Next slide. If you own your home, 48% support. If you rent, 50% support. It's usually higher for renters, but there's only an N of 6, so only 6 of those responding were rented. So it's not much data to work with. Next slide. Those who have lived here the longest are less supportive, and obviously there's a correlation to the age. So, and then those who have been here the least number of years, again, probably tied back to age, is the highest support. Next slide. Grade the district, as I mentioned, A or B, typically a yes vote, C, D, F, a no vote. Look at the DF, and it's all orange, it's all no's. One of the reasons they're saying DF is not because the district deserves a DF. They're saying DF because they're mad about taxes, right? They're filling this out going, all right, it's a tax, I'll give you a B, right? I'll give you an F. That's the reality. Next slide. So again, the opposite. If they're thinking the facilities are not in good shape, they're giving them a C, D, or F. They're supportive. Otherwise, those who give the, hey, facilities look great, I give you an A, right? They're all saying no to the tax measure. Next slide. If they are extremely or very concerned about the tax, they're voting no. If they are not concerned about the tax, they are voting yes. I mean, look at the right-hand bar, right? It's like off the charts. So again, it's all based on this tax sensitivity. Next slide. We asked them after they filled out yes or no on the ballot, tell us why you vote yes. Safety and security, number one thing. Full day kindergarten, number two. Just some basic, it's needed. A bunch of folks left it blank. It benefits property values, keeps the district competitive. Education is important. We have school-age children who are going to benefit. Waiting will result in higher costs. Then just general statements in support. And then those in the next slide. Those who voted no, pretty common. Taxes, pocketbook concerns, I'm on a fixed income. Was the number one thing. 45 indicated scope too big. And I say 45. So 45 mentions. So they could have said in their response, I don't like these new taxes. I think this is too big, and the cost of living is going up. Well, they get one for each one of those categories. Okay, so that's what I mean by mention. 21 mentions regarding full day kindergarten not supported. Trust oversight issues. Need to live within your means. You need to seek alternative funding. I don't have any school-age kids. It's not needed. Again, these are really common themes that I see every time we do a mail survey. And again, it's always the number one thing: taxes, pocketbook concerns, fixed income at the top. Next slide. Not going to go through this. Next slide. This is important. So when I look at how I prioritize projects, I think they break into 3 tiers. Top tier is security cameras, siding windows, doors, secure entry vestibules. Second tier is having to do with full day kindergarten, early childhood education, as well as support spaces for specialists. And then lastly, new bus loop and parking, and then the multi-purpose room. Next slide. Yeah, again, just repeating what we just went through. Next slide. So again, in summary, females are much more supportive than males. Those 18 to 44-year-olds are most supportive. Support is similar between likely and unlikely voters. Those who have a school-age child are much more supportive than those who don't. Those who give the district high marks are a yes. If you're extremely concerned about this tax, you're a big no. And those are the results. Happy to answer any questions that you might have regarding that data.
I think you presented it quite well, obviously.
So it's kind of a lot of data. So.
Yes.
Do you think that the size of, you know, the just the actual impact to taxes, right? So this is about, right, so I think when you gave the survey, it was about 4.5%, right, in impact to property taxes. Is that in line with kind of the 9 comparisons that you gave us above? I guess, is the actual total of this kind of problematic?
It's a little, yours is higher than a lot of them, right? So.
Yeah, because you have a smaller tax base.
Right, yeah, you don't benefit from that big commercial, industrial, right? And so the residential property owner is, it's a substantial tax. And so again, that's one of the reasons why you're seeing that. Absolutely. But it's not to say others weren't close, right? Winnetka and others are pretty sizable tax increase.
I'm curious, you said you couldn't do a phone poll because we don't have enough voters. So what's the threshold?
Like 35,000 likely voters. And think about who a likely voter is. That's somebody who would participate in an April election, and you have a really small number of.
Just over 3.
I project that you'll have 2,803 people vote in April. That's not even, that's not close to what you would need. Even if it was the presidential, right?
Yeah.
You only have 12,838 voters, so we need 3 times that to do a scientific phone poll.
before we get to the discussion points, we also shared a little bit more information with the Citizens Task Force that we'll share again with you now on the next slide.
So here's a bit of good news. So we tested $485 on a $350,000 home. As we look at this ballot question, the dollars that we need are about the same. But what's changed between the time that we put the data together for the survey, and now is a couple things. The 2022 reassessments were mailed to your homes this fall, this summer, fall. And a lot of people saw a very large reassessment increase. Cook County's on a triennial reassessment cycle, and 2022 levy year is a reassessment. So what happens then is the EAV goes up, the increases for the last 3 years are applied, and then the tax rate goes down. So that's why we're seeing a little bit lower impact. This referendum would be good for the levy that's going to be extended in 2023. We think the EAV will be about the same as it is in 22. To be conservative, we assumed a 10% increase in EAV for 22 as opposed to the 30% that you've been seeing on your reassessment bills, because we want to be conservative. So that's why we're more at 4.1% as opposed to 4.58 and $485. So, it's pretty much the same dollars, but we don't want to over ask, knowing that we're going to have a triennial reassessment next year that will impact both 22 and 23 levy years. Okay, so now we're about $30 less for a $350,000 market value home. Next, yep. Here's the ballot language. This was preliminary ballot language that we discussed with the group on December 8th. And unfortunately, this is the form of the ballot question that we're stuck with for increasing a learning tax rate. It's very wordy. It's a lot of numbers. We are looking at about a 48 cents or tax rate increase or 0.48%. And we have to reference the limiting rate for levy, what it is above the 21 levy year, because we don't know the 22 levy year, and we won't until next spring. So we're adding it to the 2021 levy year to get a limiting rate of 4.036% of the EAV extendable for the year 2023. So that 48-cent increases the dollars that pays for the 1.6 million and the 1.2 million. There's some other language on there about what the dollar increase would be from 21 to 23. And it also references the impact on a $100,000 market value home. Now, it's confusing if somebody's just really focusing on this ballot question, because the way the statute says you have to calculate this impact on a $100,000 home is you don't include the $10,000 homeowner deduction that all homeowners in Cook County receive. So if you were to just multiply this up times 3.5 or 3.5 times, it's not going to come out exactly to that $456 number we just looked at. The only wiggle room we have in this question is to talk about the purpose. So you see kind of in the middle it says, for the purpose of expanding and renovating Eisenhower Elementary School for full-day kindergarten, constructing safety and security improvements, and for other school purposes. So we have a little wiggle room with that language, and we did get some good feedback from the committee on how they would tweak that. And one of their comments was, let's talk about more than just Eisenhower, because we're going to do some repairs to all the other schools. Let's put safety and security first, because it polled so well. In the poll that the mail survey Paul just went over with you. So feel free to add other
No,
comments
we'll
from the committee.
yeah, we'll share that in just a second, right. But there was a lot of really good conversation around it.
I don't remember the park district language being that complex in
I don't either.
November. It was simpler than this. Is it because of all the additional levy?
Just going for a bond?
Yeah.
Oh, is it because it was
Yeah.
just
Oh, that's
right?
That's different.
Okay.
They're asking to borrow a bond. And, yeah, they kept using that really low value home too, which I think people saw through that a bit.
Yeah, I mean, if you did not have to hire, staff for additional full-day kindergarten, right, then it would be a bond issue.
Yeah, and so I think that you're right. I'm sorry. Yeah, so I think that this was part of it, that they were saying we just need the facility. We're not making changes to hiring, right, or expenses. Okay.
Operating, yeah.
All right, that makes sense. Thank you.
Next slide.
So we shared all of the information that Paul and Liz just shared with the Citizens Task Force. There were about 15 people who participated in this discussion. One person was homesick, so she was online, but it all worked out well, and we got to. The format that we used for this was we divided people into 2 groups, and they shared out their answers to these 2 questions with the full group, and then we came to consensus for the entire Citizens Task Force. So the 2 questions that we asked were, should District 23 proceed in placing a limiting rate referendum on the April 4th, 2023 ballot? If not, why not? We wanted to understand their concerns. And if the district does go ahead and place a limiting rate referendum on the spring's ballot, should the total amount and composition of the funding proposal be the same as that was shared and tested? And if not, how would they modify their proposal? And at that point, we had shared the lower tax impact with them. So some of the feedback that we got from them, next slide please. We asked them to make a recommendation to the superintendent, and we had unanimous consensus on both questions. Yes, they recommend that the district should proceed with placing a limiting tax rate referendum on the ballot. And some of the reasons that they gave are the needs are compelling, the solutions are appropriate, we've established positive momentum. You heard about all the work that was done to make sure that people felt that they knew about this, and that will just continue to move on. And there's really no good time to ask these questions. Completely understanding that we're in some uncertain financial times now, but there's also cost escalation if things are postponed. So they had a unanimous yes recommendation. And sometimes we'll see that people sort of have to be coaxed or it's not unanimous. This was a pretty clear recommendation and some very spirited discussion. And again, as Liz said, really talked about hammering home some of these points, both in the question and in communication moving forward. So there's this one more slide. So after they made the recommendation, they also said, we went through some alternative scenarios, maybe taking out a few classrooms. The honest truth, the architects were great about explaining that if we take out just a couple classrooms, it seems like you go from 8 to 6, you should get a pretty good size savings, but it was less than $50. So they did not think that lowering that ask by $50 and not fulfilling the plan was a good idea. They talked a lot about the importance to plan for the long-term future of the students and of the district, and that this goes back to the ballot question, safety and facility improvements and enhancements at all 4 schools. Talking about that is essential to ensure taxpayers that we're thinking about equity and working on all of the district's properties. So the Citizen Task Force recommended that the district revise the ballot question to highlight the importance of safety and security and facility enhancements at all 4 schools in addition to the full-day kindergarten. And they recommend that the district clarify the description of and need for the multi-purpose room and benefits of early childhood services. So those are certainly things that can be addressed in all future communications. And you have all seen how we try and highlight and streamline things. So we may choose to put a little bit less emphasis on the things that did not poll as well, knowing that they all have to be there in order to implement full-day kindergarten. We have to have a secure drop-off. We have to have a place where everyone can eat lunch and get physical activity. So it's not like we could take the multi-purpose room out and fulfill the educational goals of the district. And that leads us to questions and answers for all of us and your admin team.
Can you talk about the makeup of this task force?
Sure. So the task force started with nominations from all the board members, representative of their communities, as well as our outreach on the admin side to some of the key constituents. We wanted to make sure that every community was represented. So we have all 4 of the communities that District 23 serves. We wanted to make sure that we had representatives of current enrolled families as well as pre-enrolled families and seniors and those that are outside of or done with our direct services. And so among that makeup, starting in the very first, we had about 35 people. We had seen different iterations of them in the different meetings, but we did hear from the vast majority of them through those first 2 versions of the meetings and then the focus groups that we conducted this summer. At the meeting last week, we had 6 seniors not enrolled or not connected to the district, part of the group, and then the others were one is preschool, pre-District 23, and the rest are current families in the school district.
Any questions?
It seems like that this kind of comes down to getting this, if but moving forward with this, that you really have to have a group of people that are really advocating for this and getting a sense of momentum for it, right? And getting people to show up to vote. Is really what all of this comes down to at this point.
That was
this data.
That was my. Sorry.
I'm sorry, and partially the right demographic too.
That was my question: is how do you get the word out? How do you like what do those steps look like? Because I know that it changes once the question goes like.
Mm-hmm.
I know we've talked a little bit about this, but like, what does that look like, and how do you go from that 18% to the 70% or whatever that number? Like, I can't find it.
Yeah, it's usually a group of concerned citizens who come together. It's usually like 5 super moms and 1 super dad. It's every single time. Doesn't matter if it's city or county of Denver or a little tiny rural district. 5 super moms, 1 super dad, and they go out and they get other people to help. So they do signage, they do canvassing, they're knocking on doors. They do additional direct mail. They're out helping make presentations. These guys have to be super careful. You guys have to be kind of super careful, right? It's not to say that you can't put a yard sign up and you can't do certain things. It's just you got to be, Illinois election law kicks in. So, especially the superintendent, he's got to be super careful that he's not using taxpayer monies to advocate. So these super moms and dads come together, and sometimes some super seniors as well, right? That just are incredible, and they just create a lot of energy. They look at all the things that have transpired. They figure out, what messaging actually resonated with voters, what didn't resonate with voters, and then they, use that to try to build momentum. And in the meantime, you have spring break, right? So you got to make sure that people are taking advantage of early voting. Is another important thing. So if you're, if it's just about election day voting, that can be a problem. So super successful campaigns have had to vote early, have these folks going in early to vote or asking for a mail ballot. Lots of opportunities in Illinois to cast your vote.
And simultaneously, the district can be running an informational campaign, so a presentation similar to the ones that we took prior to the mail poll. Don can go and talk to Rotary, Chamber, any group that will have him for 15 minutes to explain the measure, because he can provide all the information in the world, just can't ask for that yes vote.
We would also be looking to, as from the informational side, update the website, the landing page, as well as adding a tax calculator so that folks can see the actual impacts or estimate the actual impact. But right, that division between advocacy and information would is an essential component. So the advocacy portion, as Paul and Marcia are suggesting, needs to be organically developed from any group of concerned citizens.
One of the things you mentioned was, as the task force was discussing this, one of the options was, what if we scale back to 6 classrooms?
Just in general, their question was, what would the impacts be, and at what point do we cross over into not worth it, or not living up to the promise? So do you not, so we're going to build some classrooms, but not really be able to offer full day K. Then you're sort of like, well, I thought the referendum was for full day K.
Right.
So at what point do those components?
So my question was that you said that if you scaled it back, it might save $50 for taxes.
Yeah, and it's actually 30. Sorry, I misspoke. And that's if you remove a couple classrooms, some support services, you reduce the multi-purpose, scale back the interior reno. So they saw all these concessions that would be made, and then it only moved the needle a little bit. And they thought,
I just thought if we could get that down closer to 400, it just does. It's not as jarring.
Right.
But okay.
And some of the direct feedback was, when it ties to multi-purpose room, for example, the multi-purpose room as a standalone, when we tested just that as a standalone, it was at the very bottom. But that's connected to people's perception of what the multi-purpose room is for. Why are you building a multi-purpose room? You don't need X, Y, Z at that facility. And when we talk about multi-purpose room internally, we know that it means it's a place for kids to have lunch. It's a place for the additional PE sections. It's a space for OT and PT therapies. So you can't say, well, get rid of the multi-purpose room because if you're bringing these additional students in full day, you need a space for lunch. And so some of that, again, is informational clarification that might be necessary, really explaining what we mean. Putting more support or detail behind what the early childhood programming looks like and why that's beneficial. So some of those components were asked specifically, but again, we know that we were running a pretty tight ask when we did our initial projection, and that there's limited opportunity to really see a significant cost reduction without impacting the goal of the project.
Thanks.
I guess just, to Carol's point too, right? When I talk to people in the community about this, right, I think that overall, that there's broad support for what we're doing, right? But then when people hear the price tag, so hey, we're improving security, we're going to expand full day kindergarten. Wow, this all sounds great, and then my property taxes are going to go up 4.5%. Like, oh, wow, okay, why is it that expensive, right? And so I guess just part of my concern here is that like if we go to this next phase, I think that the sheer cost of this is going to be a challenge for getting for really getting a lot of momentum behind it. And so, and I think that's just part of what I'm struggling with here is, right, I think that we have a project that we need, but a price point that I think is a challenge for a lot of people. And I think that was kind of borne out in a lot of the polling too, right? I mean, that this has been a kind of recurring discussion point from the beginning here with the cost of this.
Right.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
We have a couple more slides just to talk about some next steps. Can you go to that one, Christian? Sorry. Thank you. So our current plan is to bring any revisions or modifications forward at the January 11th board meeting. We'll again advertise community comment. We would need to vote yay or nay on moving a referendum forward by January 17th, so the January 11th board meeting fits into that window. So the goal would be leaving tonight that if there are models, projections, language that the board would like to see, that we get that for you in advance of that meeting so that we know what specifically we'd be talking about at the 11th. Following a board approval, again, we would transition that work on behalf to that community-led committee. I've had a couple of people inquire that were present and part of our citizens task force. So I know that there's a willingness among that group to take the ball and move forward with it. And then, as we suggested before, we'd be looking at informational meetings, visiting community organizations. Rotary already asked me to talk, and I said there's nothing to talk about yet. So I'm happy to share the information if that's the direction. And then again, updating our website.
Right, have your attorney come in and talk about the do's and don'ts of what a board can do and what district staff can and do, et cetera.
I guess, Don, maybe the two things that I would ask is that, first, in early iterations of the community presentation that we kind of had, we had a vertical bar chart that showed our tax rate relative to the tax rates of the other elementary schools. It was all the 214 feeders, and then I think a couple of the 211 feeders as well. But could we see that again with where we are now, and then also where we would be if this passed, and then as well as, because 25 moves up, right? 15 moves. I can't remember. Just to kind of show, assuming that we move forward with this and it passes, where would we stand relative to the other elementary districts, a year and a half from now? And then I guess one of the things that we had talked about for the annual costs, right? So I know that we have like the 18 staff members. Can we see any of the we've seen the bits and pieces of that, but can we look at that model for cost a little bit? And does that model include any estimates of kind of incoming tuition for kind of like not, for EC that are not at risk?
Yeah, we can provide a kind of a more detailed view of what our projections look like in terms of those costs.
Yeah, I'd like to see that as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll have to reach out to our expert Liz Hennessy on the question about the relative tax rates and when that'll be known to us. what some of our neighboring districts will be. Yeah.
I think you had a version of that, like in the first.
We had it from Forecast 5 from before, but there've been their referendum votes have moved forward in some of the people that are represented there. So the adjustments all relative, but that's an excellent data point to look at, because the tax sensitivity has been obviously something that we're well aware of and that we need to be very cognizant of in terms of impact and that additional hardship on families. We certainly are not surprised to see that. It's really then how do you understand that in relationship to other districts and their increased costs, as well as the long-term impact of not providing or moving forward on certain things, and how does that negatively impact the district long-term or homeowners, community members?
Yeah, exactly. Because I think one of the things, just to help kind of contextualize, this is a big increase moving forward, but once the increase is there, right, I think what we'll see is that we're still lower than some of the other districts in the area, right? Even with this big increase, right? Because there's other districts have considerably higher, right, tax rates than we do at this point. And even kind of a big increase for a referendum like this, that we obviously move up, but that puts us more in the middle. Right. I think that's what that's going to look like.
And it's not necessarily going to change the mind of any of our solid no voters. Even with some of the reduction in cost, there may be a solid no vote. If it was a penny, it's a no vote. But part of that larger ask is a result of not having passed a rate increase in 35 years.
Yep.
So compared, again, relative to neighbors who've had more incremental steps, it's been smaller steps, but they've had perhaps more of them. So that's important for our taxpayers to understand as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don, I think to that point, I don't know if it was, Paul or Marsha, somebody said this at one point. You're going to have your solid no's no matter what, and you're going to have your solid yeses, but it's this middle, right? It's your definite yeses and your definite, or your maybe yeses, maybe no's. And so how do we get there? Like what does that look like? And I think that's right, Brian, is how do we show them, those maybes or those people in the middle that are really unsure, what this means to them and what it means to our neighbors and all that.
One of the biggest things is just, if you don't fully offer full-day kindergarten and your neighbors do, there are certain places that young families are going to move to, and it's going to impact your property values. I don't know what the math is, but it's going to happen, right? And so, is that investment comparable or lower or higher, right, to that impact? That's the math.
You got to show us that math, right? That's what I'm trying to show. Yeah, this is friends of mine are like, well, you got to show us that calculation, right? Show us how much our home values are going to go down when we don't have and everybody else does. Like,
yeah,
we don't want to wait 5 years to prove it, right?
Well, and you can't promise that.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
I mean, because the communities we serve are very different, right? I mean, there's different drivers in Prospect Heights versus Arlington Heights versus Wheeling as to, where their taxes may come from and may not, I mean, so we don't serve just one town that has the same drivers. And that's the weird part of it is it's like, you might say that's true when you're in Arlington Heights, when you have all the people, when you have half the town going to 25 and half of them, and a chunk of your kids going to 23, so that maybe their property taxes is a difference, right?
Right. And same with 21, where I'm in Wheeling, but I'm not in 21, but we're such a small portion, and we're in 23. So.
Right. So there's just different drivers for different parts of the communities. That's the problem. It's like,
And I think again, the recommendation that we heard from the Citizens Task Force was the need isn't going to stop being a need. The solutions aren't going to stop being the solutions. Is there ever going to be a time where it costs less and people will be happy to pay more in taxes? So their recommendation was capitalize on the momentum that we have, the positive position that we've put ourselves in, responsibly communicating, etc., and bring that to the taxpayers, and ultimately it's their decision.
Right, because if this isn't the need, then they need to tell us what the need, and they voted no, then they need, if there is anything, they need to tell us what the need is at that point.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, I thank our team here for all of their support. This is something we decided with the board's support over a year ago now, if we were going to pursue this, we wanted to pursue it transparently and with the best resources that we could partner with, and I feel good about the process, and I really was very pleased with the numbers of people who had seen some things about the information, even those that didn't have kids in school. People may be concerned about, are you asking too much? Is this going to cost too much? But hopefully there's limited folks out there that could argue that we're not doing this in a transparent way, or that we've not had open conversations about the pros and cons. So again, I appreciate that guidance and the support of this team.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.
You're welcome to stay for the remainder of our board meeting as well. We're going to have a presentation on our extended day program shortly that is riveting. Right, Chris?
It's past bedtime.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all your time.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
All right. Let's do committee reports next. Lots of committee reports. So first will be buildings and sites, and it's Mr. Novick.
We met on the 6th of December. We talked a little bit about staffing, talked about we hired one position with good contractor experience, looking at other applicants for the maintenance tech position. We chatted about the fact that we've started our search for summer student staffing, looking for 7 to 10 students this year, increasing the rate a little bit, but sensitive to make sure it doesn't misalign with the rest of our staff. We went over the general project overview, touched on projector replacements, and the fact that there's going to be, like we did last time, a quick asbestos check for the boards to make sure that we are handling those properly. We didn't find anything last year, not anticipated to find anything again, but it's necessary to check. Electrical is slated to start over winter break for the projectors. We talked just slightly about the sensory path being started in winter break. Talked about library furniture and the Mac circulation desk. And then we touched on the PTO purchased monitors for the Mac fitness rooms, which was really cool. Just a few additional.
That's upstairs at Mac?
They're
cool.
Being installed.
They haven't been done yet.
Okay. Oh, very
they
cool.
were purchased.
We got to get a tour of those when they're in.
Yeah.
That sounds cool. Very nice.
Couple of upcoming projects that are going to come forward include some things through E-Rate for managed network services, trenching between Mac and Sullivan. There's some compromise underground pipe that houses low voltage wiring that'll be done. Replacement of licenses for access points. These things will all come to board. Talked about the Grotsky basement, and there's some worksheets that were presented, but talking about waterproofing around the entire perimeter of the building. Not sure if it's needed, but had a basic discussion about that. We still don't have any seepage since the last time we did repairs, so it's a good discussion for long term, but not sure it's necessary. There's an effort underway to look at taking all of the blueprints that are residing in the basement and elsewhere and digitizing those, and making it so that those stand the test of time, and not have to worry as much about fire and other water damage affecting our blueprints. Talked about, this was actually kind of a cool one that I thought. We talked about the Pathosan's chemical device that actually takes water and electricity and salt and turns it into cleaning chemicals, and just talking about putting in other stations as necessary. But I thought that was kind of an interesting discussion about just how the machine that we have creates the chemicals in-house from base materials, and then when things reach an end of its useful life, they can just be disposed of safely. And we quickly touched on the Arlington Heights PD that's interested in Carousel Park, across from my stomping ground. I'm told they want to open up a McDonald's and the whole, amusement park. It's a joke.
It's a joke. It's a joke.
Yeah, it's across from my house. I would not want that. That was the joke. Anyway, no, there was just talk about leaving it as a park, but possibly acquiring the space. So there's discussions that are ongoing about that. But yeah, I think that's everything.
Who would be acquiring the space?
The park district.
But they don't own that already?
No,
we do.
No, we do.
We own.
I didn't realize we owned all that.
Yeah.
But just like the fields or the entire thing?
The whole thing.
We
There's
own
a
it,
section.
Little
There's a
ribbon.
section that is the water reclamation,
Easement.
but the majority of the park is owned by us.
But AHPD maintains all that. and does
Correct.
all
We
the
have a
improvements
lease
on it,
agreement
right?
with them.
Governmental agreement.
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, then that was an effective
Yeah.
discussion.
Good report.
Any questions?
It's across from Kevin's house.
Yeah, I don't know where that is. I'll have to
There's
take
a
a
there's
tour.
a bunch of soccer fields.
I'll go take a tour.
Next is finance, so Mr. Bednar will report.
Sounds good. We met on the 5th, I think, the day before Kevin met. I think he had more fun than us, but I think we had a lot of fun too. I had to get a rise out of somebody. We talked about the financial statements, but I think the highlight that we had was talking about the new spreadsheet that we're going to have in finance, which was probably a helpful thing for some of us older board members that forget the beginning of the year to the end of the year. And basically the spreadsheet's going to summarize, where our expenditures, where we either missed the budget or where we were under budget or over budget to a certain degree, and by a dollar amount, so that we can just capture that and review it every month, so that we sort of know. So when we have opportunities to purchase something else, we can sit there and say, okay, well, how are we? Where are we? Blah blah blah. So I think that was very helpful, and except for Brian adding 16 columns to it, we're fine.
Mary Lynn added one or two.
But that was very helpful, I think. So that was helpful going forward, and that way I think old people like me can remember what we had going on in the year. We talked about some additions in the district for NSSEO, where we have several more students. We have a little bit of movement there, so that there's going to be, we have dollars budgeted for that from a perspective for new students coming into the district, but they just basically let us know that is happening and everything like that. So that's important for us to understand. We talked about our annual statement of affairs, our annual levy, We talked about EDP extensively and how well that program's running, and the fact that, you know, I think if I remember correctly, the fees are staying put. I'm not going to misspeak. So I think we're really happy. We were really happy with that whole conversation. That was fantastic. And that's about it. It was pretty...
It does sound like a riveting discussion, starting with the introduction of a new spreadsheet.
A new spreadsheet. We were excited. Trust me. I think Amy's excited that we were excited because, you know, she doesn't have to say it every time, every month, every whatever. It's right there in the spreadsheet. So
We are a bunch of geeks when that stuff does excite us, actually.
it's money.
It's awesome.
We like to understand money.
I'm in agreement. I do.
Any questions? All right, moving on. NSSCO is next, and that is me. So we met, NSSCO met last Wednesday, and as always, it started with Shining Stars. There were 2 high school seniors, one from 214 and one from Maine Township, I think. They talked about, they had been in the DHH, Deaf and Hard of Hearing program, DHH program since preschool. So they talked about their progress in all that time. And currently they were highlighting skills that they're working on for, well, communication obviously, but for job skills and moving on. One of them is moving on to college. And they both were chosen by the staff there to represent Hersey at the DHH Student Leadership Day, which was organized by the Illinois Service Resource Center, which is housed at NSSCO. And so that is an area, Chicago area program where students participate to develop leadership skills and bring knowledge back to their peers in their home programs. So that was Shining Stars. Then Melissa Swanson, who runs the DHH program, she continued with their NSSCO's continuous improvement plan update on student outcomes. So she highlighted that program. There were a couple statistics that were pretty amazing to me. She said in the DHH program, they have 42 students at NSSCO. 7% of them use ASL at home, like as their language, which is pretty amazing. And of those students, 65% of them come from non-English speaking homes. So you're learning ASL that's based on English, and you don't speak it at home. So anyway, and so she was talking about the math program, which is, they use iReady. So how that helps students in the deaf, how features in that program help students in the deaf and hard of hearing program. There was an update on the superintendent search that the HYA search firm has done many interviews and forums. They've talked to all the admin and all the member districts. They've talked to all the board members, many staff, and have compiled all the information and created kind of a like a character survey of what they're looking for in a superintendent. So their progress is a tab on the NSSCO website if you want to go and take that in. Let's see. Then the superintendent report was, Judy just talked about the retirement of Dr. Ayala in February and some of the things that will change as that happens. Renee Erickson, who is the Director of Special Ed for 211, was appointed to the Transition Committee for it's an ISB organization, I can't remember now. So in that group has to do with transitions, and so they were talking about how that will be a benefit going forward. Let's see. Well, it's okay. So there was an update, just a little update on the RTO working group. RTO is the restraint and timeout that is kind of an ongoing project. NSSEO is working. There's members of NSSEO who are working with state representatives to try and share best practices and kind of hone this approach going forward so that everybody kind of has the best practice for RTO. Let's see. And there was a request for additional staffing at Minor due to increased numbers of students. So the cost of that is covered by the tuition of those students, so that was approved. There was an update on the NSSEO Foundation, some fundraisers that are coming up for that. And that is pretty much it for NSSEO. Any questions? Okay, so next is the policy report, and Bryn is not here, so.
Anyone
Mr.
else
McClaney,
have
policy
any
report.
Yes.
On policy.
It was a small one.
We met.
Thank you.
Small, you're tiny.
It was. We had a lot of fun on December 1st. We met and went through all of the policies that are included in tonight's package, whatever this thing is called. It's late. Sorry, guys.
Yes,
It's already
no,
past my
it's-
bedtime. Everything in there is going to be, as you read through it, it's adopt as presented. There's a couple of things to note. The professional conduct code was updated. So a lot of legal things, like legal footnotes were updated. DCFS made some changes that Amy gets to now work with another piece of her job to work with the new DCFS changes. The definition of family has changed, so there's some updates for that. And then the definitions of emergency declarations. So a couple 5-year reviews that were in there. There's a lot of stuff that we got to review.
There were 40 or something?
Yeah, 41, 42.
Listen, policy is a lot of fun, and if you all are looking for a riveting,
I can put it in a spreadsheet. That might, yeah.
All our newest
We did it before it was digital.
I'm just saying, we don't need spreadsheets to have fun in policy. We just read and talk and have a good old time.
Yeah.
So any questions?
Were there any
Is that it?
major decisions that had to be made within any of the policies?
Nothing.
It was all pretty much accept.
It was adopt as presented. A couple of
You
legal.
did get an easy patch.
So can you explain to me policy 6.65?
I actually probably could if I knew I was presenting tonight. Yeah, no, it was good. It was a good meeting.
Other than that question, are there any other questions?
Yes, Jim, we can talk at 5 a.m. tomorrow.
That works. I'll be there. I'll be in my hot tub, but yeah.
Oh, man.
If it's not raining.
Okay, so maybe we'll postpone the IASB.
Or are we trying to speed things up, Madam
I
President?
promised that we would.
Okay.
Let's save that till next time.
Sure.
Okay. Let's do community relations.
I'm still up.
That's you.
That is me.
You're so good at it.
Thanks. I love community relations. It's like my joy. Okay, so tomorrow night is Kevin's laughing because he knows that this
No,
brings me great
you
joy.
absolutely do, are very expressive about community action, so I agree with you.
Thank
You sound very.
Thank you. So tomorrow night from 5 to 7 at Ross Sullivan is going to be the District 23 Family Heritage Night. Bring some cookies to share, like a favorite family recipe. You should sign up. That is going on tomorrow night. On the 19th is the all district staff meeting. On the 19th is also, as we heard earlier in the presentation, the Sullivan Band and Chorus concert at 7 p.m. It's going to be a good time. I've heard a lot of music in my house lately preparing for that concert. The next night, at the 20th, is at 5 p.m. the Eisenhower Early Childhood Winter Concert. And I'm telling you all now, if you have nothing to do next Tuesday at 5 p.m., you should come. Because I have heard the songs, and they are amazing. So
Where's that one at?
it's at Eisenhower. George will be performing, so you should all come. It's great. He's been practicing. The next night, the 21st, is the Sullivan Orchestra concert, so you have an opportunity for music every night next week. The 22nd, we're really excited that winter parties are back and room parents are in the rooms, and Ike, Ross, and Sullivan will all have winter parties next Thursday. And as parents are really excited about, that's the last day of school for winter break. So Friday starts no school for those 2 weeks. And then Monday the 9th is Institute Day, so no school that day as teachers come back to prepare. Classes resume on Tuesday the 10th, and then we meet as a board on Wednesday the 11th with a PTO meeting the next night, the 12th. So there's a lot of good stuff happening as we wrap up our winter. iReady Diagnostics open tomorrow. Those are all coming. So there's some good stuff happening in our community and schools.
All right.
Any questions?
Okay, thank you. So moving on to the consent agenda. We have the approval of regular meeting minutes of November 9th, 2022, approval of executive session minutes of November 9th, 2022, and the personnel report. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Moved by Mr. Novak, seconded by Mr. Fanny. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bednar?
Yes.
Mr. Godanis?
Yes.
Mrs. McClaney?
Yes.
Mr. Novak?
Yes.
Mrs. Peters?
Abstain.
Mrs. Bowenski?
Yes. Motion passed
5-0.
5-0. Forgot for this one. Okay. And next is the financial report. I had the bills this month, and there were a few minor questions. Other than that, everything was fine. So I would move to accept the financial report as presented.
I second it.
Moved by myself and seconded by Mr. Bednar. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bednar?
Yes.
Mr. Godanis?
Yes.
Mrs. McClaney?
Yes.
Mr. Novak?
Yes.
Mrs. Peters?
Yes.
Mrs. Bowenski?
Yes. Motion passed 6-0. Okay, next is the public hearing on the 2022 tax levy. On November 9, 2022, the Board of Education adopted an estimated tax levy for 2022 as developed by the Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Operation and the Finance Committee. At this time, the board wishes to conduct a truth in taxation public hearing for the purpose of allowing anyone to address the board regarding the 2022 Certificate of Tax Levy. May I have a motion to open the public hearing on the 2022 Certificate of Tax Levy?
I move to open the public hearing on the 2022 Certificate of Tax Levy.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Bednar, seconded by Ms. McClaney. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passed.
9:14.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to address the board on this matter? I guess not. So,
Do you want to?
Before we close, Amy, do you have any, I know there's no real changes, but you just want to say anything?
Yeah, do you want me to talk a little bit about what I have to share now, or wait a little bit until the item in the superintendent's report?
Do it now.
Do it
under
now, or forever hold the
under
peace.
the hearing component.
Perfect.
Yes.
The only, so just a few things, in accordance with recent legislation, that states that a truth in taxation hearing, the cash reserve balance of all funds related to the operational levy must be presented. So fund balances as of 6/30/2022 across all funds total $10,766,853. Across the operational funds for education, O&M, transportation, and working cash, total balance was $6,497,851. As stated, there was no change from the prior request of the tentative. So we're looking at a tax levy this year in the amount of 8.53%, reflecting CPI of 5%, and taking into account an additional amount for potential new growth. Also included in this evening's board packet was the supplemental levy, which the Cook County will levy funds on our behalf to take care of our bond issuances. That has been provided by Chapman and Cutler. And we've also included a new resolution for apportionment of our funds, which will now reconcile any PTEL overage proportionately to the other funds and fully fund the ed fund with regard to the levy. So those were all the items that were included in this evening's packet. And again, no changes to the levy from the tentative.
any questions? May I have a motion to close the public hearing on the 2022 certificate of levy?
I move to close the public hearing on the 2022 certificate of tax levy.
I'll second.
Moved by Mr. Bednar, seconded by Mr. Novak at
9:17.
9:17. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Okay, moving on to superintendent's report.
As much as I know Mrs. Lebrecht would love to stay till the very, very end of our meeting, I think we'll move EDP, the discussion of EDP program and fees first, and I'll hand that off to Mrs. McPartland and Ms. Lebrecht.
So just a brief overview as discussed at finance. We kind of went through some updated information regarding the EDP program. Currently, Director Lebrecht has 155 students currently participating, and she's here just to share a brief update. At this point, the recommendation is not to increase fees to that program. So let's come up and share a little bit. Whatever's comfortable. Yeah, you can stay. You can stay. Wherever you want to be. Or stand right in front of Brian.
They do that to me when I'm checking kids in and they get really close. I'm like, claustrophobic, move back.
I think she's talking about us.
Oh, no, the kids. The kids when they're checking in.
So tomorrow morning, I know what I'm doing.
I don't know, I might oversleep. No. I did want to say from the beginning, I wanted to claim my word as composure because those kids were incredible. And I get nervous when I'm speaking because I'm very informal. So when I was listening to them, I'm like, wow, look, 4th and 5th grade, that could outdo me any day. So that was fabulous. So I'm claiming composure at 9:20. But I do want to thank you for letting me come and share. We have good stories in EDP. Our numbers have grown, which means we have gone back to our expanded EDP program. We have 2nd, 3rd, and 4th at Ross. and we have the 5th and 6th graders in their own space at MacArthur. And then by 5, whoever is left at MacArthur, then they come over and join the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. So it's kind of nice to have the older kids have their own space, and we're not struggling with 2nd graders playing with 6th graders, you know, throwing dodgeballs and everything. So it's I think all of them get a nice chance to have their own space. So that's pretty exciting. Numbers are up in the morning and the afternoon, so that's great. Another benefit from the office, the EDP office, with the super organized setup that we have in there now, it's fantastic. I mean, the kids were so amazed. Wow, Miss Chris in this office, oh my goodness. And now it's just so easy to go in. Of course, before it happened, I had stacked boxes, and the thing I wanted to do was always on the bottom of all of those boxes. So now it's just shelves, and we can just easily go in. Okay, we're playing bingo. Let's, you know, take it out, and it's fantastic. We know what we have, and it's easily gotten. So that's fantastic. Thank you for updating us. It's certainly a benefit. I know the last time I spoke online, one of my goals was to get a disco ball. And I did not get a disco ball, but I have a karaoke machine with the disco lights. And the big thing in EDP is Dance Party Friday. Donna has seen that. Anybody's welcome to come on down. It's grown into a dance party, then we do karaoke. They've done some like trivia, like name that tune kind of thing. They'll play music and have the kids, and then it goes into just regular trivia. So Friday is the place to be. Yeah. So that's a lot of fun that we did. I'm hoping to bring in some more assemblies now that we can get groups back into the building. I know before COVID I was trying to get the escape rooms that we had done with the Family Fest. But then COVID hit and we couldn't do it. But now I look back at that company and they do escape rooms. They do trivia game shows that they'll set up in your place. And then they also do like a race car, like the cars, and they'll set up a track. They also do axe throwing, but I don't think that would be appropriate. I missed that part. So I'm hoping to do something like that. I also have an in with a company that they dress up and come and do sing-alongs. And I've asked the kids, and they're yes, oh my gosh, yeah, I'm going to do that. So, and my love is acting and theater. So, I'm like, why doesn't EDP do a little show? Or, you know, I'm like, hello. Or I think before I started, they did a talent show, like EDP talent show. So I think I'll try to incorporate that. So that's some things, and then just the regular trying to replace and replenish all of our games and things as 155, 160 kids are playing with the games. We have to replenish them, so that'll be where some of the money will be going in the next couple months. The one struggle that we've had this year is with staffing. I used to always put out things to Harper and even to the education department, and they would get out our advertisement. And there's been several supervisors that are now teachers, and so I got nothing this year. I put it out on the job, their job forum at Harper and Oakton, and didn't get one application. Put it out to the high schools. I did get a few applications, but they can't start till February, or they're seniors in high school, so they're busy. So we are always looking for more supervisors to help us. But overall, it's been really good to have the kids back and doing the typical things that we were doing before. And I'll end with the moments that you just like, oh, this is why I do this. This is so cool. The new audio visual or audio and video equipment. I'm standing and getting ready to, okay, we're gonna have snack, everybody sit down, everybody be quiet. The gym teachers are putting up the screen and it's right above me. And I noticed, I could hear it, and all of a sudden I go, as the screen was going up, and they were all like,
how did you do this?
It's Chris. And I knew it was about to be at the end, and I turned and I looked at both hands and I go, and I went up in there, yeah! Thank you for being part of my joy. And that's what it's all about, is that those moments that they play along and they find the humor and they have a lot of fun. So yeah, good things happening in ADP. So thank you for letting me do that.
And I want to give you just a ton of credit, because throughout the pandemic you continued to run a program. When we were in person, you did an amazing job spending the time to package individual, activities and crafts so that the kids could still safely distance, work independently, and you've just been so thoughtful in continuing to shift and provide activities that, allow for engagement after school, and you've done such a great job, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been challenging, but
I made it through, what a lot of people here don't know, right? That don't get to see Chris every morning. And Chris, whether our kids show up with a grumpy face or a happy face, meets them with the same smile every morning and tries to turn that, bad morning around, which is really nice. She sees a lot in the mornings, not just from me, but from, all the parents I watch walk in. But also I was going somewhere with this. It's late. She also she had a staff member who the kids loved, and they had a creative schedule because they couldn't work. And Chris was like, whatever you can do. And the kids were so excited that they came back, and could be whoever the fireman maybe?
Oh, yeah.
And the kids were Lily's you cannot come until after 5, because I need to make it back to Ross to see him. Just the excitement that Chris was able to be flexible with staff to get them back in the building, to make kids excited to be a part of that.
And that's a shout out to the staff members too. I mean, the ones that I have are wonderful. So I just need some more.
There have been a couple Fridays where I've shown up and I've been told, you're too early. Can you come back later? And I'm like, okay. So they're so excited to be there for this party on Friday that I don't even come before 5:30 anymore.
I do have to say that I kind of gauge the success on how many kids say that daily. I mean, it's probably 3 or 4 at least a day that come out and go, can you come back? Can you come back in an hour? Can you please? And parents will. I'm like, you're serious? Or they'll come out at 5:30. Can I stay longer, please? I'm like, no, you have to go home. But I mean, it's fun to watch, because they're excited to be there, and they're excited to be with their friends. And
kudos to you, Chris. Seriously.
It would be impossible for some parents. Trust me, my kids lived at EDP, and without, you can just see the enthusiasm you have, and that's fabulous, because it's a lifesaver for families. I mean, it just is. I mean, it's we're going everywhere else, and you smile when I show up at 5. Don't yell at me completely.
It might just be a little grin.
Next time. But what Jim said is true, but also I think that there are a number of kids that go to this program just for the social aspects of it, right? That they don't need to, right? And again, just repeating what Becky said, once a week I get told to come back later, right? When, say, no, I'm having fun, you come back at 4:15, right? Or 5:15 or whatever. And so, but that's just, you know, both of those are, I mean, that's a testament to you and your staff and the environment that you foster there. So thank you for doing that for our community and for the children.
Yay, Chris.
See you tomorrow morning.
I'm like an hour and a half past
No
my.
increases in EDP fees recommended for next year.
Pack up. Believe it.
But the friendly emails to remind us that we need to pay our EDP.
Those are still coming.
They're friendly. They are friendly. Becky, you haven't paid yet.
Oh, I don't want your name on it. It's just a general. It's just a general email.
We'll jump back to item A. There are a number of information items, just we won't rehash, but to draw your attention, annually we file the immunization compliance report. We've done so with ISB this year. It's an opportunity also for us to say thank you to our nurses as they are very diligent about gathering, reviewing, filing all of the appropriate documents, and we're again in compliance with that report. In your packet, there is a presentation from Silver Lining Learnings that we opted not to have them come and present because we knew we already had a lot on the agenda. They're just providing an overview of, they're our partner that are helping us with the strategic plan review. They've already started since this August with some preliminary work. They've met with district improvement team. As we turn the calendar, we will start seeing more engagement with our community, and that will include a one-on-one interview with each board member to have you have an opportunity to share your thoughts about the vision, the direction, the needs of the district. So we'll be arranging that individually based upon whenever your schedule allows. And then we will have some faculty, student, and parent focus group discussions as well as a survey. And we'll be bringing more information about that as it's outlined kind of in that presentation. AZ and the social studies team have been busy looking at curriculum. Just any quick updates on that information that you shared?
Just wanted to give you an update where we were and where we are in the instructional materials process. In looking at social studies materials, we all geek out. We geek out. You guys geek out to like spreadsheets. We geek out to curriculum materials. So diving into that, there's a lot of things to choose from. Some of the there's been some changes in the standards in that it's not just about history or just plain content. There's an underlying theme of inquiry that has to be part of all the standards. So really diving into figuring out what this piece in history is about, and also a civics action. Taking civic action is always part of the standards now. So I learned this about history. What am I going to do about it? What are some informed actions that we are going to take? So those are kind of some of the underlying themes we're looking for in the materials. The primary grades are looking at some new materials, but they're also considering creating their own units because a lot of it is just about family, community. A lot of our reading materials have that crossover. So do they need an extra, textbook? So those are some of the things we're looking at right now.
Item E is our annual statement of affairs. You want to give an update on that?
Yeah, just an informational item. This report is published in the Daily Herald. It's published actually by District 214 in their role as Treasury. And so that ran in the Herald on November 21st, and a copy of that has been attached for review.
I'll jump to G and just share that we completed our North Cook Regional Office of Education audit. We're on a rotation every 4 years or 5 years, depending on their numbers. And they do a full full analysis of all of our compliance, legal compliance, educational compliance, files, student records, and we passed with flying colors. Always some things to point out that we can improve upon, so we've been seeing some modifications to our paperwork and procedures in a couple of different areas, but we're very happy that we had a very clean audit, so that's always preferred.
They said some nice things about it.
Yeah, yeah. It helped that their visit was the day of the MacArthur Veterans Assembly. So I made sure to bring them by and say, oh, by the way, we happen to have this phenomenal assembly and community involvement and kids reading and speaking publicly, and yeah, so it was a good opportunity. And then we'll go back to item F, the annual levy for tax year 2022, which is an action item. Amy, do you have any other?
No, nothing more to report on that.
So we will need a motion to approve.
I move to approve the 2022 tax levies as presented.
Second.
Year it was.
Moved by Mrs. McClaney, seconded by Mr. Bednar. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bednar?
Yes.
Mr. Grodanis?
Yes.
Mrs. McClaney?
Yes.
Mr. Novak?
Yes.
Mrs. Peters?
Yes.
Mrs. Bolinski?
Yes. Motion passed 6-0. Okay. Moving on to old business.
Oh wait, I'm sorry.
Did we skip
I
something?
skip, or did I not include the enrollment projections?
It's not in
No.
Yeah, that's
Okay, we'll include those in January.
Okay. Any old business? Okay. Then, new business.
Just our first read of the press policy 110. Again, as Becky reported earlier, no real challenges here. Committee is recommending to adopt as presented, and we'll bring these back for our official vote next month.
All right. Then that brings us to the end of regular session. So, wishing everybody out there happy holidays.
Yep.
And
no action after.
Yes, and no
executive
action
session.
following closed session. So I need a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
For the purpose of.
For the purpose of negotiations.
And superintendent.
And superintendent evaluation.
I'll second.
Moved by Mr. Bednar, seconded by Mrs. Peters. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bednar?
Yes.
Mr. Grodanis?
Yes.
Mrs. McClaney?
Yes.
Mr. Novak?
Yep.
Mrs. Peters?
Yes.
Mrs. Bolinski?
Yes.